Okay, so to follow up on our interview with Amy, I have my dear friend KP. I call her KP because it's really hard to say her last name. So you have to say your last name.
Kimberly Paskaywish. Yes.
There you go. So we had talked a little bit about completing the family and adoption, and your pathway was quite different from Amy's. So I kind of wanted you to share that with everybody.
So Amy, it sounds like she has two
She has two kids.
And then she is pursuing the adoption process now for a little girl.
Yes.
In China, so that's amazing. So ours is a little different. Todd and I got married, and we were married for a long time, and about 7 years before we really, you know, started our expanding our family. And so for us, I think we always kind of knew that there might be some fertility issues or whatnot, which we kind of worked through as a couple and felt like, you know what, there are so many kids in this world that need homes, and we have a home, and we have a loving home, and we just wanted to share that with kids. And so we started on our adoption journey about 7 years after we got married. And
so up until that point, you tried. I mean,
we
tried, and
we waited a little while because we wanted to get our careers things established. But then once we were like, okay, you know, we're ready, it was kind of like, okay, well
God's not ready.
But I think that, you know, we worked through that. I think that we kind of leaned into each other during that time, and we were both just really supportive of one another, and we were pretty solution focused. We weren't gonna like be deterred from our goal, which was to start a family. So we didn't really have a preconceived idea of how that would come to be,
or what it would look like.
We just wanted a family. So I think that you know, I appreciate that so much about Todd, and you know, us to be able to just always look forward and not kind of you know, we grieved a little bit, but I feel like in a way that let us move forward and not that we got stuck there.
So you did international adoption as well, and then you chose Korea.
We did.
So did you choose it, or did it choose you, I guess?
Yeah. I don't know. We researched a lot, and I think for me, domestic adoption at the time, like we researched pretty much every country, domestic, foreign, like we just looked at everything. And you know, as a mom, like when you make up your mind, like you're ready to be a mom, like you're like, where's my kid? You know,
right.
Where are you?
And you don't want anybody to take that away, because I know that can be the concern with domestic adoption.
It is. I think, to be quite frank, with domestic adoption, I think that we were not educated in terms of what adoption's all about. Like when I started this journey, I was wanting to start a family. I mean, I appreciate Amy's testament and her ability to say, like, I'm being led by God's calling. No, it was like, this is my calling, and I want to start a family.
Right.
That's
I'm
what
mama
my
bear.
motivation
I'm
was.
meant to be a mama bear.
I'm meant to be a mom, and so I think through the journey, I've found a relationship with you know, God, and I've learned to listen. But at that time, I wasn't. I was like, I want a family. So I was listening to my own desire, my own drive to, you know, start a family. So, so we, you know, we looked at domestic, and quite frankly, it scared us a little bit because we didn't really understand what it means. You know, for your kid or for your child to know where they're from, and that was threatening to me as a mom.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it just was. And I think that in hindsight, you know, now that I'm older, and you know,
you might have thought about it a little differently.
Older, that I would have probably considered maybe that. But we found the Korean program. It's actually a local attorney here we knew, and Bill Sheehan, who's a great adoption attorney. He mentioned the Korea program, and Eastern is the adoption agency in Korea that was established with LifeLink at the time, an adoption agency that was local to this area in like the Chicago area. So we got linked up with them, and we went through the process, and we got matched with our son when he was 6 months old.
Well, and let's talk about that part, because you know Amy is very transparent that May has no idea that they are seeking her, and really she doesn't have a whole lot of choice. So when they matched you, what is considered in that match that this child is going to be good for you, or you're going to be good for that child?
I don't know at the time that they look at. It's kind of like we were on a waiting list,
right?
So and LifeLink at the time would post like who's next on the waiting list.
I see.
You're in this like waiting game where you're just like who's next on the list. We're 5 down. You know, how many more referrals have we gotten this month? And so it's as referrals come in that they match with the available families.
So you got matched with Reagan when he was 6 months.
That's when they're eligible in Korea for international adoption.
So what was that moment like? Like here, this is your son.
Him. So we got papers. We got like a 2-page report on his kind of circumstance, you know, how he came to be eligible for adoption, and how his birth was, and just some kind of basic information about his health, and on those well baby checks thereafter, and then one photo. So so we read it and we looked at it, and it was just like, this is him, you know, and we could finally like to feel that connection to him, and I think that starts right there when you first see.
So then what was it like when, you know, Amy talks about when you know, she's going to go to China, and obviously she's just going to see May and bring her home. What was that moment like when you saw Reagan for the first time? And you were like, this is it.
It was scary. We were so nervous, you know, because you don't know what to expect. And for them, I think, I just think how resilient they are to be able to. He left he was with a foster mom.
I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, so she took care of him in their home for 18 months. And so,
because that was his home.
That was his home. He was in a foster family. So his what they call Oma and Appa, mom and dad in Korea. So we still refer to them as their Omas and Appas. So they brought them to the agency, and then we got to meet them. And it was so interesting to watch the two interact, because they carry him on their backs. So he just crawled right up and ran up her back, and she knew where he was and what he was doing, and she kind of reached behind him and she perched him, you know, on her arm, and he just kind of, it was like a koala bear. It was just the cutest thing, and they were just very, you know, loving. You could tell that they just like loved on him, and so when we had to make that, you know, we got into this van, and oh my gosh, it was just, there was a group of us with all these kids that were being
So you're in a van with other families who
had. Yes, it's the love van is what we call it, and I still have this connection with these families that were in that van with us. Like, I know them because we experienced that together, and that was such a defining moment for those kids. They're grieving. You know, they have no idea what's happening. There's that trauma that's involved, and unfortunately, because of the age that they are, they just have that.
Well, and their speech is not necessarily intact, comprehension, cognition. So they can't express to you their fear. You can't express to them, I'm here to nurture you.
I'm here to comfort you and understand. Wow. He cried a lot, and he grieved. Reagan was very extroverted in his grief. A lot of kids, you know, they either fight, flight, or they shut down.
So did you get to a point where you're like, did I make the right decision? He looks miserable.
Yeah, it was that night in our like apartment, or like a hotel room.
Right.
And he got down off the chair, and he pointed to the door. Like, I'm not staying here tonight. You're going to take me home. You know, and so we had to, and Todd at that point was just like, this is so difficult. And just that process overall. Then when we had to bring him home, you know, he'd never been on an airplane. He had a 14-hour flight with 2 strangers that didn't speak his language. So it was, you know, it was a lot.
And how old is he now?
He is almost 8 now.
Yes.
And he's still not a little fireball.
Right?
He is like a spitfire.
Was he ever a koala bear? Did he ever climb up your back?
You know, he didn't. But it was so interesting. We went back, you know, and he was around his Oma again. And he interacted with her in a very similar way.
Very different way, yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, he knows her. Like, he remembers that. And so... yeah, I mean, he did, there's a lot of touch with him. Like, I had to be physically touching him when he slept, because I think he feared, like, if he closed his eyes, he might wake up and everything would be different again. Sure. And that took a long time for him to, you know, we had a family bed when he first came home, because that's what he was used to there. Right. And then we had to, like, he slept on top of me for like 3 months. He had to be on me. Right. And then we would transition him into a crib, but I had to. First, I was in the crib with him. Then I was outside the crib on a mattress with my hand through the crib. You know, it was just
so he needed that safety.
He just needed to know, like, you're not leaving.
So then, because this isn't just one international adoption.
Yeah,
you did it a second time.
We did it again. So Reagan was, I want to say 4, maybe, and the adoption agency reached out. At the time, the laws changed a little bit in Caribbean, so it was a little bit more difficult to adopt. And so for that reason, for several reasons, there became kind of a drop in families signing up for the program, because it was becoming a little bit more steps and cost prohibitive. So they were reaching out to past families to say, like, would you be interested? Because you know, we still have referrals coming in. And so at the time, Todd and I knew we wanted more kids, but we just, I mean, Reagan just needed our attention at that time. So we were really kind of just focused where we were. We really weren't getting too far ahead of ourselves. But that we felt like, okay, well, there's a reason they're reaching out. And so, so we were like, well, the idea of having, if we're going to grow our family, to have a sibling share in his culture and that, you know, that heritage, we thought was kind of cool. So, yeah, so we signed up again, and we were matched with Frederick, our second son, pretty much immediately, because they were familiar with your case. They knew us. We had their paperwork in and all that stuff. So they were looking for families at that time. So we got matched with him. Right when he was 7 months old, we got his referral. He had some issues at birth that kind of let him, he was in the NICU for a while, so he wasn't eligible until he was 7 months old. Okay. So we got matched with him right away. So, and then the process, because the laws changed, the process was longer. So he was 2.5 when he came home.
So then what happened, however, in between?
So we got matched with him when he was 7 months, but he didn't come home till 2.5 years. So we were just in this waiting pattern. So it was the summer of June. I remember. It was June. I know. You're my doctor. You remember. So I got pregnant. So, so that was very unexpected. I was like, oh my goodness. But we felt like, you know, we needed to tell our social worker and our adoption agency that we were expecting, because in the Korean laws, you would be excluded from being eligible for international adoption if we were pregnant. So we felt like, you know, we have to report that, you know, where we are, and that was really hard because it was my first trimester. But right when I found out, we told our social worker, and she was like, you know, you'll lose this referral. You'll lose Frederick. Yeah, you'll lose him. So she kind of sat on it. I think she sat on it through my first trimester just to make sure, you know. And then she notified Eastern, the Korean adoption agency, and so she came back and she said, you know, you've lost his referral. And at that point, he was almost 2. Right. He was like, that was the summer, and he would have been 2 in November.
And did she say why? Because, I mean, do they think that you're not going to give him the same love? Because you have a biological child that you're pregnant with? I mean, I don't understand the reasoning behind, oh, you're off the list.
I think that maybe before there were a lot of families waiting, so maybe that was part of just that process. But given that the laws had changed there, and there wasn't this long list of people waiting. And really, if he would have been rematched with someone, he would have started that waiting period over again. So he would have been 4 or older before he came. And just most, if they're just the older that kids get, they're harder to place. So, that was hard. But we kind of, I don't know, we couldn't really get past it. We were like, this isn't right. That's my kid. So we contacted our agency back, and we were like, can we petition this? Like, can we contest this? Is there anything we can do? So they reached out, and they said, well, why don't you guys all write letters and have your family write letters, and so kind of a testament or whatever. So so Todd and myself wrote a letter. Some of our dear friends wrote letters on our behalf, and our pastor wrote letters, and people from our church, and my parents, it was just we were like, we're gonna flood you with our letters. And so we did that. And meanwhile, I'm still pregnant, trying to figure out,
because you almost had to go over to Korea while you're pregnant, which I was like
I'm like, well, all the kids might be Korean.
True, very true. But but just stressful time. Your first and only pregnancy. You want to protect that pregnancy, but you also want to
protect my kid,
protect your child.
That I cannot touch. It's one to have them here, where I'm like, I got this. Like, I know how to do this, but that, I'm relying on so many other factors to take care of my kids when I'm not there. So we did. We waited and waited and waited, and then we heard back, and they said, we'll consider it, but have your baby first, and then if you feel like you still want to adopt, then you let us know. So Georgia was born in February.
GP.
Yeah, and I think the end of February we wrote them
okay, we're ready.
We still want him. He's our son, kind of thing. So so then that kind of started the process over there, where they were willing to process our paperwork and let us travel.
So in a span of 8 years, you've gone from 0 to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in 6 months, we went from 1 to 3. Yeah.
So what was that transition like?
Yeah, it was hard. That was hard, but you don't really realize that it's hard because you're just doing it. You're just in it. And you're just like, this is what we got to do. This is our family. Yeah. So.
Do you feel complete now? Do you feel like your family's complete?
I mean, I'm so content. I'm so blessed. I'm never, never in a position where I'm like, I need something more, because I can't even begin to count my blessings that I've got. So, but I mean, we still have a room. But yes, no, my husband was like, we're good. We have 3 littles, and it's hard when they're small, because they do need your attention and whatnot. But
and I commend you, because we're when we had talked to Amy just about the cultural aspect, you still maintain their Korean culture.
We try.
Very strong.
It's hard, because there's not a lot. We're not in a big city where there's access to all this stuff. But we have some great friends that we connect with, and a lot of some of them that we get together a lot and celebrate the Korean holidays. And we have some good friends that are Korean, and they can enlighten us and things, and we're planning another trip back to Korea, so we'll take the boys back, and we're still in contact with their foster parents. We think they just need that as they get older,
to know where they came from,
where they're from. And Reagan's 8, so he's
does he ask questions?
He does. He does. He's asking. He always asks questions, and we feel like as adoptive parents, you really have to be open and transparent with these kids about anything they have questions about. You can't be guarded, and it's not about you. It's about them.
And they have such different perceptions. One of the families that we have in common, one of her nieces actually never really saw the mom pregnant, because even though the first child was biological, the other children have been adopted. And so she never really had this vision of babies come from bellies. They
they
just show up and they come.
Here they come.
Yeah. So, I mean, we forget kind of that they watch and they model and they process.
They're trying to always, and as they get older, they're processing that information on a different level. So those questions get a little harder.
Right.
They're getting a little harder.
Yeah.
And they catch it off guard. You know, you're driving home from church and there's all these questions, and we're like, where did this?
What?
We're having this conversation right now in the car on the way home. You know, but I think as like I said, as adoptive families, we have to be open and willing to talk to them about that. And it's not a threat to me. It's now it's like, I get it. Like, you need to know this information to make you complete.
And you know, when we look at the different path that you have gone, I mean, it's kind of that old adage that you opened your heart, so then God said, all right, you gave, now I'm going to give to you. So very interesting.
No, I found in having kids and going through struggles, and Reagan's a great kid. He's my sensory kid, you know. So it's like he's my first, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
He actually wants to be on video. By the way, he's already told us that we have to do something with him.
Apparently, but so I mean, I really had to like lean in. That was the first. You know, I mentioned when I started this journey, it was like, I got it. I'm gonna take control and figure out how to get what what my next steps are. I'm gonna be empowered to just go and you know. And then I had my kids. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like you get humbled. You know, you get humbled, and then I think that's where I really found, you know, the Lord, and that I have to lean into Him and realize these are His kids, and I'm just here to shepherd them,
take care of them.
Yeah. So
wow. That's amazing, KP.
Wow.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing, because I've worked with you, for 5 years now?
Yeah.
So she's one of those people that when you're around her, she makes you better than you thought you could be, and I'll do something, I'm like, I didn't think I could do that. So cheers to KP.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Cheers to you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll have to get back to you if you ever decide to do more.
Yes. Definitely.
That's why Todd's not in this interview.
Todd's not.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.